Where you at, Who-Dats? And on this week's episode of Pro Saints Talk, we give you the cliff notes on Ian Book's first start in the NFL. It was a Monday night disaster, spoiler alert, but we hurry through that one and get straight on to the Panthers and remind you that we are very much in the hunt for the playoffs. We have a special guest from Panthers Nation to give you that breakdown and get that insight that we need going into this one. So sit back and turn up this week's Pro Saints Talk.
Look at uptown people like yeah. People up in Britain like yeah. Mid-city folks like yeah. People downtown man yeah.
Where you at, Who-Dats? And welcome to this week's episode of Pro Saints Talk. Coming off another rough one, season full of these just rough ones, man, that you just flush it down the toilet, burn the tape, all the puns you want about Ian Book. Yeah, hey, close the book on Book, turn the page. Look, I'm here to say let's not judge a book by its cover, maybe not even judge it by the first chapter. George, how we living, baby?
Ron, we're lavish, and I'm pleased to introduce sports agent, Panthers insider. You want to see how big of a deal he is in the Panthers community, in the Panthers beat writers. Google John Jones Panthers. You can see all about it. My former college roommate, I guess you'll always be my college roommate. That doesn't change. My college roommate, John Jones, the Panthers insider. John, how you doing, my man?
Living lavish, George. Good to hear you are as well. Appreciate the hype and maybe some embellishment. We'll leave that up to the fans to decide, what they find out about my resume, but that's up to them. Glad to be on the podcast. First time caller, long time listener. Fun to be on this side of it. So looking forward to it.
John, we're happy to have you, and happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas first and foremost. We have to get that out the way. But Ron and I got to go over the Dolphins game quick. By all means, chime in. And, you're a football fan. Your 2 cents is noteworthy, too. We'll breeze through that. Not Drew Brees. We'll breeze through that, and then we'll hit you hard with some Panthers questions, if that's all right.
Let's do it.
Boy, George could have used Drew Brees out there. Look, I don't know if it would have made a difference or not. It definitely couldn't have gotten any worse. George, it's just another one of these losses this year where the Saints can't get anything going in the run game. They get one-dimensional, and that is not who they are this year. They are not the one-dimensional pass it 50 times a game. Instead, it was Ian Book getting sacked 8 times. The Dolphins' front seven was stout. They just shut us down all night. Camaro was frustrated. Ingram looked ancient. They just couldn't do anything. George, they needed to be handing out a player card. I think the programs should have been reprinted and given out for free this past Monday night. I mean, I can't tell you, all the talk in the dome around me was who's number this, who's that, who was that giving up that sack, who's playing right tackle. Baldwin hit us up with a great meme this week. It was that classic, like the couple's in bed and the girlfriend / wife is like, oh, he's probably thinking about other girls. And the guy, the meme for the guy was like, who the heck is Caleb Beninock? George, I mean, did we even stand a chance? I feel like we talked ourselves into it, but I don't think we never had a chance.
We sure did. We did talk ourselves into it. And the moment I really lost the wind behind the sail would have been when they announced that Teron Armstead was out with that knee injury. Because then you had Hurst and Armstead as your tackles going to now it was then Hurst and Benonic. I don't know how I was saying that. He's a Nigerian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And that guy was your emergency backup guard who's never played right tackle in the NFL. He's kind of a project type guy anyway. The teams bring in as a camp body that he may develop into a perennial backup, but that's kind of who he is as a guard. So asking this guy who's already a project type player to then move to right tackle on Ian Book's first start was a recipe for disaster. And the worst case scenario occurred right in front of our eyes. I've never seen a defensive line have their way on a quarterback like that. That was like throwing a baby in the Amazon River and the piranhas going after him. At the time, I made the joke, he looks like a Make-A-Wish recipient where they said, it's my NFL dream to play quarterback in the NFL, because Ian Book just looked so small out there. He looked like a Make-A-Wish kid playing football. But you really, I mean, I don't know how much you can really tisk on Ian Book given the lack of protection, the lack of weapons downfield. So in a lot of ways, you can really just pat him on the back for being a tough son of a gun and remaining on his feet and not giving up, because the pounding, the punishment, just the size difference. I mean, he was like a featherweight taking hits from heavyweights all game long. And there were brutal shots, brutal moments. It was a very hard game to watch as a Saints fan because there was so little room for hope. The one thing I said, Ron, you said there was no running attack. The Wildcat, when used, worked a little bit. I would have preferred to have seen them go back to that. To that work over the long haul, you have to have Kamara throw to keep the DBs honest. But I would have liked to see Alvin Kamara run that Wildcat a bit more, because that was really the only time it really seemed we had any momentum offensively.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you come out and the second pass of the game is a gross miss for a pick six, it's all downhill from there. So, yeah, I can't disagree with you there, George, on like, hey, more opportunities where Ian Book didn't have to make the play and you keep it on the ground. Yeah, I guess that could have been good. I don't know. It's not – the frustrating thing was it wasn't like the defense played badly. You know, the offense put them in some bad spots, especially when you go down 7-0 right out of the gates. The defense played tough. They kept us in it. You had this tease of momentum right there at the end of the first half where you get the big sack from Cam Jordan. It forces a farther field goal. They miss it. You're like, here we go. We got to get some – all we need is a little spark. I mean, surely Kamara can get going. No. It turns out Kamara's like everyone else. He needs like 2% of blocking. And it's just – you didn't have the right tools to be out there. And I think I need to just eat crow and admit that, you know, Jansen was playing up this defense this past week on the podcast. And I was like, look at them statistically. They're middle of the road. Look at who they've played. Look at the quarterbacks who they've played. Well, I mean, heck, they played another gimme, if you will, at the quarterback position. And the defense stepped up. And I mean, George, they looked like a top 5 defense. I mean, just from the front to the back, we couldn't penetrate them at all. And it's pretty sad. It's pretty embarrassing. I don't really know. I guess the depressing thing for me was there wasn't any like signs of hope or like flashes of greatness for me in Book either. Instead, you saw these like, oh, I think I'm fast enough to play in the NFL scrambles. And it's just the classic, like, I know we're all armchair quarterback in here thinking that we could do it better and make the right decisions 100% of the time. But it just felt like he'd be on the left hash running all the way across the field with probably 30 yards of decision time to decide, yep, just throw it out of bounds, and he just let them catch up to him and push him out of bounds and just take the sack, or he just run out of bounds. And it's like, what? Come on, man. So, yeah, he was sacked 8 times, but it just felt like 3 to 4 of those didn't have to happen. And it's like those are the kinds of plays that, okay, now we absolutely stand no chance of converting a first down. So, yeah, I mean, George, do you have any positive takeaways to take away from this game?
Defense wasn't terrible. Ian Book was very tough. I think at that size, you realize how special Drew Brees was in his ability not to take a hit. But that being said, Michael Vick would have gotten hit in that game. It was just the lack of protection. It was just berating. The punter was good again. Blake Gillikin, good all season long. No surprise there. Even though your boy Thomas Morstead is defensive special teams player of the month. So, but hey, I'm not crying over spilled milk. I don't miss my ex punter there, my ex girlfriend, because Blake Gillikin's doing great. But no, long story short, not a lot. Good takeaways there.
Well, look, I got one for you, George. I'll give you one takeaway. the league thought it was so bad that they decided to change their COVID rules after that. And I mean, look, we could play the victim card all we want about how this game should have been rescheduled. I didn't really see how that was going to benefit us in the long run unless they would have like somehow created a new week of the season for us, because they're only going to push it back a day or two and you're already the Monday night game. So it's like, do you want to just pay now, pay later in terms of having a short week on the back end? And so I guess the positive there is this was an AFC loss, which does matter.
Yeah. I was about to say that.
Yeah, it's an AFC loss, which does matter for our playoff contention. But yeah, George, I mean, it is kind of crap when you got Mickey Loomis coming out and saying that the NFL was pretty much like knife to our throat. Like, no, y'all are going to play tough shit. Just get over it. Like, the game's going to happen no matter what. Where, like, just the week prior, we saw, like, Monday night games, Tuesday night games. I don't know. I guess this one was just a little bit different in that I personally, you tell me, George, I personally was like, just get it over with. Let's just take the L and move on.
Yeah. I was surprised there wasn't more of that in the play calling down the stretch and just get those guys out of there. One thing about Ian Book, I worry about his ability to see over the offensive line. And that makes you realize like how crafty Drew Brees was in his positioning and his footwork, how he was always moving to make those angles to see the players downfield because they're about equal height. Whereas for Ian Book, I know the pass rush was getting right to him, but even when he did have a clean pocket, I don't think he could really see downfield. And like you said about his speed earlier, I mean, to be that diminutive, you need to have Tyreek Hill speed, Deontay Harris speed. I know he has a nice new name, Godfather, but that's the type of speed you need to survive in the NFL if you're that small. Like, look at Kyler Murray. So I worry about Ian Book's longevity because if he takes hits like that his entire career, it's going to be a short one. But look, you saw that game. You have eyes. If you watch that Dolphins game, you know exactly what that was. These practice squad or borderline practice squad guys coming in. We got our butts kicked. It's not a game that really you can elaborate on and really say this is who we are, because that's not like that wasn't the Saints. That was just like the replacements. That wasn't so. There's not a lot to it. It's going to be a good Conchurch-Pistica game one day. Who played in that Dolphins Monday night game because of all these guys that we've never heard of before. The replacement right tackle came in the day before. There's just so much of that. But look, on to the next one. We got a division rival. Remember the Panthers? We used to hate when Cam Newton came to town. We used to hate when Luke Kuechly came to town. We used to hate when Thomas Davis came to town. And that rivalry is getting put in the shadows compared to the Bucs and Falcons. But they whooped our butt earlier this year. We were completely distracted with Ida when we lost to the Panthers earlier this year. And now, if there's any lifeline remaining, it involves beating the Panthers. So let's transition to our boy John Jones. And your first question, John, who's the Panthers quarterback?
Great question, George. And I think as you just talked about, Ian Book kind of highlights how hard it is to play quarterback in the NFL. Someone that was pretty good in college and then looked like, a JV guy got kind of tossed out there to the wolves. So as of today, these things tend to change, but as of today, it sounds like Sam Darnold is the starter. These things can change. As last week, we got a little Christmas Day surprise that Darnold was activated and that he was going to be playing alongside Cam Newton or starting for the game at the Bucs last week. So could change, but it sounds like it's going to be Darnold with Cam getting put in there for some special package situations. Being that it's a road game, we won't have that awkward situation where every time Darnold comes in, he gets booed by the fans, which they're probably booing Matt Rule more than Darnold, but he's, just part of the problem, I guess.
Okay, wait. George, that's the thing though. Cam Newton is coming back to the Dome, man. So I think, look, we talk about this Panthers Saints rivalry and it's had its ups and downs and its moments, but I feel like this one's got a special shot in the arm. We just got done talking about how bad that Miami loss was. Dude, in some respects, the Panthers' loss was even worse. I mean, you're coming off like a week one thriller, just domination over Green Bay in Jacksonville. You got all the Ida factors, and you thought, man, here comes our magical run. It's going to be like 2006 all over again. And then we just got absolutely kicked in the nuts and then just like stomped on by the Panthers. And that felt like a totally different team. It was so long ago. I mean, Jameis Winston was the quarterback. You had a relatively healthy offensive line. Like it just doesn't even feel like that was us, or at least not the same team as it is right now. But yeah, all right, John, I do kind of want to pick your brain on that because like, all right, one, you get the revenge game on Sam Darnold because we made him look like a freaking all-pro. Pardon my take, was like, oh, well, man, is this guy – was it just the Jets? Like, did Matt Rule and Joe Brady fix him? Well, okay, let's fast forward now. Like, I know there have been some injuries. You lost Christian McCaffrey, but what is the problem? Like, you got rid of Joe Brady. Matt Rule seemingly on the hot seat. So what is it? Like, what is the difference between the first, 4 or 5 week Panthers and these Panthers?
Yeah, I think the obvious difference there, Ron, is just a couple easy spots on the schedule there with playing the Saints, who were, I think they were missing a few coaches too at the time, maybe some players with COVID, but
we had Ian Book running the offensive substitutions.
That's right. Already looking forward to a future potentially. Yeah, as a coach, I remember that. But yeah, so I mean, at first week I was like, oh, it's the Jets, big deal. And then it was the Saints, and that's when the hype train really picked up speed. I think it was Darnold's best like overall passing game, even though he did throw a terrible interception. Kind of the second half of that game, he started to show some old Darnold, which carried over a little bit in the next week. But we played the Texans, so you can kind of hide that there. And then he played really well the first half against Dallas, and the tough call, weird fumble, forward progress situation, ended up losing to Dallas pretty bad, and it's been downhill since there. Darnold of old, I'm not sure if teams got a little more tape on him, or if he's just, he's easy to scout and whatnot, or if he's just not that good. But I've kind of didn't have a lot of faith in him in the first place. He changed my mind, and since then it's just been obvious he is not the guy, and we have spent a lot of money on him this year and next year. So it's going to be a tough situation next year too.
Okay, so were you one of the Panthers fans that had the nostalgia of like, oh, Cam's back? Or were you like, you kind of know what you're going to get here, this is a charade? What was your reaction?
It was, so hand up, I was wrong on Darnold. I try to speak for the Panthers fans in general. There is very much a split of, we need to draft a quarterback, we need to draft Justin Fields in this draft. I was very anti Justin Fields, was thrilled to get J.C. Horn. I'm always like, hey, let's go with the safe, if we got a first round pick, let's go with a safe play, get a defensive player that can play, that we know can start, fill a need that we have. People wanted Justin Fields. I don't wish, poor on Justin Fields, but it's been nice to see that he hasn't come out and been the rookie of the year or MVP type thing, that I'm glad we didn't, burn a pick on a quarterback, because our O-line is terrible and it might not matter. But there were a couple weeks there where we were talking about MVD and look at Sam Darnold and look how fast he is and whatnot, and quickly came back to life. Wasn't thrilled we paid him that much, but for the first 3.5 weeks, he looked really good and looked like we could build something around him, to the point where the Panthers went out, got Stephon Gilmore, started trying to make all these moves to put together a team this year instead of that competitive rebuild they kind of started out with.
I got a question for you, John. And there's two names that we faced in week 2 that we're not going to face this year. I mean, this upcoming week for the Panthers. The first name was J.C. Horn, which Ron, remember our draft episode? That was the guy that we were hearing the Saints were keyed in on, but they didn't have the draft inventory to trade up and get him. He looked fantastic, intercepted Jameis Winston in that week 2 match. It looked fantastic in the beginning of the season, then had the season-ending injury. So we'll see where his career goes from there. Kind of mixed feelings. He's Joe Horn's kid, so you're rooting for him, but then he's also a Panther. So, I mean, of course you want him to be healthy, but you don't want him picking off the Saints all day, every day. But the very interesting topic with the Panthers, namely with the LSU homers here, is Joe Brady, because it looked like he was McVay all over again, this rising star, this passing mastermind. And now, 2 years later, it really looks like his stock has gone from the ceiling to the floor, and he's not who we thought he was. And yeah, the head coach isn't doing so well, and maybe Joe Brady was the scapegoat. What happened with Joe Brady? What happened with the coaching staff to get to where we are now?
Good question. He was, like you said, huge deal coming out of LSU. Panthers thought they had something special, this and that. He's going to craft up all these things with McCaffrey. We've talked about this previously, but I think a lot of it is just the talent difference when you're at LSU and you're playing against Mississippi State, where you've got LSU had, I don't know, what was it, 3 or 4, maybe 5 first-round draft picks on that offense. And you've got a mismatch everywhere. You come to the NFL where it evens out a little bit, and you're on a Panthers team with a limited, O-line. And I thought he drew up some things, McCaffrey, that looked special, that looked like they had potential. And then it seemed to be, not sure if it was he and Matt Rule didn't work as well together or what it was, but offense got bad. It's kind of ironic that Matt Rule came out and said we need to run the ball more. And then a couple weeks later, fires Joe Brady. And then I think we attempted like 9 runs against the Bucs or something. So it's like, it's pretty clear that he's been the scapegoat for Matt Rule to buy himself a little more time, but hasn't been a good situation.
Are Panthers fans pro-Rule or anti-Rule?
It's probably split. I mean, I'd say most people are anti-Rule. I try to be as logical about it as possible. I'm not a big fan. The way he kind of came in, he seems to have a pretty significant control of some of the personnel moves and the roster and whatnot. And I did a quick control find. We have currently 7 players on our roster. This includes practice squad 2 that are from Temple. And usually not how you want to craft up a NFL team with a lot of guys from Temple, not exactly a powerhouse, but brought in a lot of his guys. A couple have been good, but I think that's the one part that I kind of question. And people are Twitter and where, fire Matt Rule, this and that, but I don't know if there's a better coach out there. So I'd say for the most part, people are pretty displeased with Rule.
Well, it certainly seems, George, like it's like the inverse of Sean Payton, Matt Rule coming up as a defensive guy, and he's cycling through coordinators trying to find the right offensive, scheme that'll work for him. Meanwhile, the defense hasn't been terrible. I mean, you look at their rank in yards, they're second in the league. Points, they're like middle of the road, but this is a great passing defense. John, you alluded to some of the quarterbacks y'all have had the opportunity to play in this year, but I mean, heck, the numbers, the averages, they've all played out at this point. I mean, we're in week 17. So, yeah, I think this is a for real passing defense. So, and we are not a for real passing team. So I just feel like, and you look, same thing, flipping it around for the Panthers and us. So I just feel like pound the under this week. Spoiler alert from The Godfather. I don't know. But yeah, so I just feel like Matt Rule, he may have it sort of figured out here defensively. They've had some injuries like we talked about. They had to go out and trade to get Stephon Gilmore after the J.C. Horn injury. But yeah, I just think offensively, John, tell me if I'm off base here, but it just seems like Matt Rule hasn't quite figured out who his right guy is on offense, similar to how Sean Payton for so long couldn't find the right defensive coordinator.
That's exactly right, Ron. It's just defense has been carrying the team. Talking to some friends and whatnot around week 5 or 6, it's like, man, if we could just get a living, breathing, competent quarterback to just not screw up and maybe avoid a few more 3 and outs, like the defense has been carrying us. The offense just can't put up any points, just turn the ball over. I think that's a product of drafting 7 defenders, only drafting defensive players in the 2020 draft, and kind of building around that and bringing in some free agents. But defense definitely, has been figured out. Offense is just I think it all starts with the O-line, and then, some personnel moves that Matt Rule and Fitter, the GM, have made, letting Teddy Bridgewater go, convince himself that Darnold was the guy, spending a lot of money on him, this year and next year. And, thinking that Rule's his boy, PJ Walker from Temple was going to be a good quarterback who has proven to not be much of one as well. But yeah, I'd say defense is good to go. A lot of great players. They're going to miss out on a couple this week with COVID, I think. We'll see what happens today. But yeah, as you mentioned, offense is that's the biggest hole we have right now.
Ron,
we're
going to ask John one quick question here. John, so I know there's great food in North Carolina, and I know that being an NFL head coach is a very stressful job, and you're going to have to spend a lot of time in a dark room looking at tape. And, you see Obama's first year in the White House, you compare that to his last year. He's aged a bunch. You look at George W. Bush's first year and his 8th year, he's aged a bunch. It's a stressful job. I get it. But Matt Rule is really, he's aging 12 years and 112 pounds in that year and a half he's been coaching. What's going on? What can we elaborate on the dietitians of the Panthers here to allow such an obesity to occur?
Yeah, I hear you, George. I think, unfortunately for Matt Rule, he's not a real tall guy, so that doesn't get to stretch out. That weight doesn't have a lot of room to go. But you'd think after being in Philadelphia, I don't know what the food's like at Baylor, but I would assume a lot of barbecue. Maybe that's what you've uncovered here. The barbecue is much better in North Carolina compared to Texas when he was at Baylor. And he's, the results are there. But yeah, I think that's a sign of a good coach. Look at Andy Reid,
I don't know, man. He ain't pulling off that stupid windbreaker vest, in my opinion. So he ain't doing himself any favors. I know we can't really talk because I can't remember the last time Sean Payton wore a collared shirt. But, that's just, I guess, the modern-day NFL. You don't have those Jack Del Rios rocking the suits on the sidelines anymore.
At least Andy Reid and Sean Payton shave. Rule looks like he just at the frat party, eating pizza all night, rolling out of bed. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not judging him so much, but, look at Belichick. He wears cutoffs. It doesn't really matter what you wear. But he doesn't have the appearance, or he doesn't inspire confidence in decision-making and, how he handles himself on the sideline there. By all means, I hope the Panthers keep him for as long as possible because I see a vulnerability there. Ron Rivera, you've had two good coaches back-to-back, Fox and Rivera. Rivera's a good coach, and maybe he's not the best coach, so the Panthers kind of didn't hold him in high regard. But of the 32 NFL head coaches, I'd say he's always around top 16 guys in the world who can do this job well. So maybe now we're seeing how good Ron Rivera was because he kind of – you had a very low floor in that timeline with Ron Rivera. Y'all were never going to be that bad because he was such he kept y'all decent. But now I see the Panthers having the same problems the Saints have, and that the defense has to carry the load while the offense struggles to get anything done. One question that comes to my mind is, so Darnold did look good initially, like you said, and that was when McCaffrey was healthy. But then when the offense had to turn on to Darnold to make the plays, that's when he didn't cut it at all. And now McCaffrey, how healthy is he? Because as long as McCaffrey is doing his thing, to me, the Panthers can always be dangerous enough to beat anybody.
Yeah, that's a good point, George. And let me go back real quick to what you mentioned about letting Ron Rivera go. That was the first big personnel move by Matt Rule and the new owner when they came in. They fired Rivera during the season on his day off, and I'm sitting here like, we better have another option. I'm not a big fan of firing guys, cutting guys if you don't have a better option. I love what happened with Cam Newton, and then also with Rivera, and you've seen what Rivera's done, since then. I think people realize that was maybe a bad move. But yeah, going back to what you said about McCaffrey, I think it helps to have another threat out there, someone you have to cover. You have to he can go in the slot. You got to keep eyes on him. It seemed to open up a ton of running lanes for Sam Darnold, who I never thought was someone that could run fast enough to at one point, I think week 3 or 4 was leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns. So I think it's partly McCaffrey being out, having one less threat out there. Chuba Hubbard hasn't been terrible, but it all goes back to, I think, O-line. And the first 3 weeks, it just wasn't a lot of competition. No offense to the Saints. Y'all had, like you said, you had a lot of, other things going on other than football at the time. So I think it was just some easier games for Darnold, and then teams getting just tape on him and seeing the couple of things that he does and reading off that.
All right. Well, so what goes around comes around, John. So, yeah, we were dealing with a lot of COVID back then, and it seems like it's the Panthers' turn this week. And we should let the fans know we're recording this on a Friday afternoon, and anything could happen, just as we found out last week. I mean, we issue our podcast, and then, 30 minutes later, Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, both, out with COVID, and like half the rest of the team. So, two big names on y'all's COVID list right now are probably, a couple of y'all's, at least out of the healthy bunch, maybe two of y'all's best defensive players, Brian Burns, Shaq Thompson. So, what do you know, first off, that you could tell us maybe in terms of like their status, potential to play this weekend, and how big of an impact that is for y'all's defense that we just highlighted?
Yeah, that's huge, Ron. Yeah, they carry the defense. Both Shaq Thompson and Hassan Reddick. I take back what I said about guys from Temple. Hassan Reddick is a beast. It's the other 5 or 6 that are a little questionable there. But just got an update right before we started. It looks like no word on their status, but Brandon Zylstra, our new number 3 wide receiver, also found out he's our backup kicker when needed, since our punter doesn't know how to kick. That's a whole other story. But
wait. Can we talk about that? That was so bizarre.
Please. Yes. Yeah. So, I could talk about our kicker situation for days. They drafted the guy from Georgia Tech, who's now one of the better kickers in the league for the Chiefs, cut him. It's been a revolving door of kickers. Finally get our guy Zane Gonzalez, tears his quad in warm-ups. And you're like, all right, well, the punter can kick, right? No, he's an Australian rules rugby player. He does not know how to place kick, which I don't know what he does at practice all day. That's extremely disappointing. So they had to go into the locker room and ask, hey, who can kick? Like we're in middle school or something. And Zylstra trotted out there. PJ Walker trotted out there. Someone else, they were out there practicing. PJ Walker is a straight-on toe kicker. You can't make this stuff up. Zylstra held his own, though. For the most part, some line drives, but, good for him for not worrying about embarrassing himself and stepping up when he's needed.
I was watching that game on Red Zone, and the DirecTV Red Zone guy, Andrew Siciliano, said that the punter refused to kick. And I don't know, what do you mean you refuse to kick? Do it. I don't know how that punter got away with that. I get how he doesn't have much experience doing it, but even an unexperienced punter has to have a stronger leg. And I don't know how you tell the coach, I'm not doing it. I don't know how you tell the coach that. I was astonished when I heard that. Yeah,
and then at first it was like, well, maybe no one else can hold. I was like, we have enough backup quarterbacks that all these guys can hold a field goal extra point if needed. But it was apparently he was just he doesn't know how to kick, and I guess didn't want to embarrass himself and hurt his future potential on other teams, as he sees he's kind of on a sinking ship right now. But yeah, that was, I don't know how they haven't figured that out. At some point throughout the season, off season, okay, if the kicker's down during game day, who steps in and kicks? That's just pretty inexcusable, I guess. If you're a college team, it's a little bit easier, so maybe not something that Matt Rule has dealt with, but the GM has experience. I don't know how they, just a huge misstep in a game they played well. And it unfortunate they could have made a little bit more of a game, I think, with proper special teams players. Go figure.
Well, okay. I think you highlighted a couple. The players in and out this week are huge, right? If there's no Burns, no Reddick, no Shaq Thompson, I really love the Saints' chances in this game. I kind of love them regardless, just because it just feels like we're getting all of our troops back. But George, the Lord giveth, and the virus taketh away. Eric McCoy going on the COVID list yesterday. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Saints are trying to set an NFL record for offensive line combinations this week. George, do we even have anybody left at this point that can come in and play?
Rod, you just said you're confident. Armstead still isn't practicing. Ramrod, as of Friday afternoon, just, refreshed Twitter. Ramrod's still on the COVID list. His knee situation, he's been day-to-day for 9 weeks, I feel like. When was the last time we saw Ramrod? So,
it's been 6 weeks at least.
Dude. And so then you have Ramrod, now McCoy, Armstead, who hasn't practiced, didn't play last week. I mean, you're confident because they don't have.
I didn't say I was confident. I said I like our chances.
So that
doesn't mean I'm confident.
I like our chances and confident are very synonyms. But look, okay, get my words out. But look, if there's a quarterback who can kind of turn a broken play into something, it's Taysom Hill, because unlike Ian Book, he can just outrun the mother, what. So he can just go run. So
you say that, but it takes blocking to be able to run the football. And that's my biggest fear is like, dude, now you were talking about being out four of your 5 starting offensive linemen.
Are you counting Pete?
Yeah, I'm counting Pete. I'm counting, count. Dude, you better believe when it benefits my argument, I'm going to count Pro Bowl Pete. Yes.
All right. But technically speaking, because it hurts the depth when he went out. But yeah, no, that's no good. So that's still so alarming that we don't have our tackles and now McCoy. This game could be horrendously low scoring and ugly, where it'll be like the Dolphins game last week for both teams. And we don't bet, we're not the Godfather, but if you are, I would highly recommend you hit that under. But don't listen to me, listen to the Godfather for that type of report. But wait. Here he is off the couch, off the COVID reserve list. Here's our boy, the Godfather.
All right there. Happy New Year, Rons. Hope y'all got the stink out of your eyes and out of your taste. Unfortunately, Ian Book gave me the disease last Monday night. I've got the COVID, but we're still picking winners here. I'm just gonna touch on the Saints game real quick. Just stay away. This might, look back since Peyton's been there with the Saints. Some of the great offensive shootouts we've had, great games we've had against the Panthers. That ain't happening this weekend. You got a Saints offense that hadn't scored a touchdown. In weeks. Carolina's offense is garbage. I don't care who's playing quarterback with them. Stay away. I mean, God, I'm looking at the total, 37.5 for an NFL game. Unbelievable. In a dome. It's not like this is, in a hurricane or something. Stay away. Let's go to New York. The Meadowlands, Tampa Bay. They're laying 13 on the road. I don't know what it is about these non-divisional cross-conference matchups. Tampa's gonna beat the crap out of the Jets. The Jets have nothing. Fool's gold the last 2 weeks. Tampa's going to win by 20 points. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's doing his thing. That line is moving. It opened at 7.5. Now it's at 4. Bengals are a 4-point dog at home. Got a chance to lock up the division at home. I give me the Bengals. Burrow's going to throw the ball all over that Kansas City defense. Again, I think you got fool's goal with that defense. The Steelers are nothing to write home about. Their defense played great last week, but let's see what they can do with this Bengals offense firing on all cylinders. All right, the football team at home, divisional dog at home against the Eagles. Eagles got everything to play for. Washington, they're going to be tight. They've got that. They got a coach, that might be wearing a shirt tighter than his team. The football team's getting 5 at home. Let's go with the football team. Divisional home dog. It's a good recipe for success. All right. Baltimore, Lamar's back. They're facing a Rams team. Give me over the total on that one. I expect the Rams. Fireworks from the Rams. And fireworks from the Ravens, too. Lamar will be back. They'll be loose. Harbaugh, great coach. Give me McVay, douchebag, over the total. Probably like the Ravens to win, but I really like over the total more than the Ravens, plus 3.5. Last, let's go to Tennessee. Let's go to Nashville. That Dolphins team barely could beat the practice squad Saints last week, but for the book. God, I don't even know what that was. Drew Brees, Ian Book is jealous of Drew Brees' arm strength. And that was the worst thing I've ever seen. Titans laying 3.5 at home. Titans are a good team. I like the Titans. Give me the Titans. Laying 3.5. And all right, that's it. That's I believe that's 5. There's 5 for you. Happy New Year, Rons. Let's close this out with a couple wins, a couple winning weeks, a couple of wins for the Saints, and I'll see you next week for fucking week 18. Back to you, Papa George and Mr. Ron.
All right. Well, look, full disclosure, y'all, I haven't listened to the Godfather segment here. So coming off of that, I mean, look, it's shocking to me that I'm looking at the Saints being 6.5-point favorites, just considering last week, all the factors going into this one. But I think it just purely comes down to motivation, right? And I don't want to spoil game predictions. We'll get into that a little bit later, because first and foremost, we need to know weather conditions because this is going to be the last chance to get under the overpass, to get your tailgating in. Look, the Saints are vying for the 7th seed, all right? Ain't going to be no home playoff games this year, y'all. This is it. You got to blow it out. Start 2022 the right way under the overpass. I need to know sleeves, no sleeves, shirt, no shirt. Let's hit them.
What's up, Rons? This is Russ, the weatherman. Now, some of you may be wondering where Red is, but I'm here to inform you that Red has been temporarily usurped by a superior and frankly more handsome weatherman, if I do say so myself. This Sunday, January 2nd, we have a high of 76 and a low of 39. Wait, did I read that right? Well, it appears that we will be experiencing some of that typical bipolar Louisiana weather, or we're on the cusp of a nuclear winter. Either way, for those of you brave enough to tailgate this, bring your raincoats and your ponchos, because we also have an 80% chance of rain. Thank God our boys play in a dome. Am I right, Andrew?
Hey, can you hurry that up? I gotta hurry up and upload this podcast.
All right, until next time, I've been Russ, the weatherman.
Cool fronts coming after the game, though. Cool fronts coming after the game. You heard it from your boy Red. It'll be a nice, pretty day on Sunday. Maybe a bit windy. But guys, can we make it to the promised land? Can we make it through the desert? Can we get out of this, crazy season we're having and actually make it to the playoffs? Which would be, think about all the adversities this team has had this year. I'm not even going to listen. You already know. For this team to make the playoffs would be astonishing. You really have to go back to Sean Payton and Dennis Allen, coach for a day, and tip your hat to them, because look at the quarterbacks we've had. Look at Ida. Look at COVID. Look at not having our tackles. Look at all the adversity we've had this season, and to potentially still have a spot to make the playoffs. Easiest way, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, we need the Niners to lose one of two. They got the Washington, not the Redskins, and the Rams, who week 17, we're now week 18, will now be playing for something. So they're still going to be running and gunning with Odell. We have the Panthers. We have the Falcons. So we go 2-0. Niners go 1-1. We're 0-2. We're looking good. We're looking good. So, guys, get your voodoo dolls. Go pluck those. Make a Niners voodoo doll. Go pluck them. Go pluck them. Get us that win. Do what you got to do. Saints going to win. Niners going to lose. Ron, am I right or am I right?
Hey, you're right, dude. I mean, look, you look at this schedule, you play the playoff generator simulator, and there's some every fan would pick it one way, and that way puts the Saints in at the 7th seed. And I'm sorry, but yeah, the 49ers have a tough road ahead to get there. And I know the Saints don't have the tiebreaker with Philly. That's why Philly's likely going to get that 6th spot. And George, I'll plead ignorance. I think that if the Vikings won out, that would be trouble. But they've got the Packers there, and just who can see that happening? Who can see the Vikings beating the Packers? I don't want to sit here and like overly jinx it, but I mean, come on. So yeah, I just feel like all roads now. Hey, Saints got a TCB, got to take care of business here these next couple weeks. But that's George, the 7th seed. I can smell it. My sense of smell is all the way back. I can smell the playoffs. Okay. And so, yeah, that's what everybody needs to be rooting for. You're rooting for Vikings losing. You're rooting for 49ers losing. And heck, just to be safe, root against those Eagles. Come on now. So I think, when we talk about the schedule lining up and everything, George, we talked about that Cardinals Cowboys game. It's going to be interesting this weekend. Cardinals skidding into the playoffs, but they need to be playing for something as well. So it's going to be interesting to see who's got different motivations going into what some of these last couple week matchups. But that's what I'm going to be honing in on. And so every Saints fan needs to be rooting against those 49ers, rooting against those Eagles, rooting against those Vikings, and of course cheering on your Hoodats. All right, so given that, we got to get to game predictions. So, John, like we said, we got Saints 6.5-point favorites. That over-under is an embarrassingly low 37.5 points. Give me your unbiased prediction here of how you think this one goes.
Thank you, Ron. Completely unbiased, of course, as always. One thing to look out for, Panthers only have 5 wins. 3 of those came in dome stadiums, on the road there. So much like Saints have had some success outdoors this year, we've had some success indoors. So I'm feeling good about the Panthers. O-line is decimated. Going to be a low-scoring game unless there's some defensive touchdowns. Who knows? But got to go with 21-20 Panthers. Cam Newton, 2 touchdowns. TBD if they're through the air running, but that's what I'm calling.
Totally unbiased. Yeah, that's that hard-hitting analysis that you get from the John Jones blue check mark on Twitter. So, George, let's get back to reality though. And what's this game really going to be like?
14-13 Saints. Ron, your boy said 21-20. I don't think this game. I think points are going to come fluky. It's going to be defensive touchdowns. Special teams is going to count for more than ever in a game like this when the offenses will be ugly. Not a game you want to start fantasy offensive players on if you're playing in the championship, Red and Simo. So one thing I would like to say, I know it has nothing to do with predictions, but the amount of players going down with COVID, with injuries, it's just crazy to me that this was the time they picked to extend the NFL regular season, because all it turns into is a war of attrition, more so than how well a team can how well a general manager can put a team together. And I know he has to factor in the possibility of injury, so you have to put it in good depth. But how healthy you are is pretty much 80% of the battle this time of year, because there are so many guys going under. And look at the Saints last week, the Panthers upcoming. It's just, who are these guys? And it's getting to be a bit mind-blowing that, to me, now that we're this deep into the season, that they actually extended the regular season an additional game.
Yeah, George, I'm going to say that Sean Payton is going to realize that he has to heavily rely upon the run game. I mean, usually usually even bad offensive linemen can lean forward and get some push. When you start challenging their footwork and backpedaling and shuffling their feet right, that's when they really show their vulnerabilities. So I just feel like we got to really lean on the run game this week. You talked about bringing in some more of the Wildcat package, definitely getting some more designed runs for Taysom. I mean, heck, it's all or nothing. We've been talking about it the last 11 weeks. It feels like it's a must win. Don't worry about protecting Taysom's body. This is the time to beat it up. And if Kamara's rolling, this is the time to run him 32 times. So let's keep it on the ground and let's eliminate those turnovers and let the defense work. Give me 13-7. That's right. I'm even going lower, George. So 13-7. Who dats? All right. So, all right, we talked about the playoff scenario. We talked about the game predictions. We got a couple of just housekeeping questions that we can't miss. We got to support our fans here. So, George, we got one. How was Jansen so spot on all year long that Ian Book should be the starter? I mean, for all you, check the tape. Back when Jameis Winston was having his struggles in week 2 against Carolina, Jay was calling for Ian Book. Was he not, George?
When we all went shopping for crystal balls, he paid extra, and you get what you pay for. And all the predictions that we like to make out there, Jay finally got one right. Ian Book looked amazing, looked tremendous. So now he's got 2 predictions right. He called Ninkovich early in his career that he was going to be a Pro Bowler. Lo and behold, he was a Pro Bowler just for the Patriots. And now fast forward 13, 14, 15, 16 years, he called it. Ian Book is a solid NFL quarterback. John, we got a question for you, my man. John Madden passed away. John Madden, Pat Summerall, is that the all-time best commentator duo you've seen?
No, absolutely, George. I mean, RIP, John Madden. I'm sure we all grew up playing, the Madden video game, whether it was Madden 2001, whichever one, was your preference there. The voice of Madden, Pat Summerall. I've enjoyed hearing all the great John Madden quotes come out again. Him drawing up the telestrator on the turducken or the Gatorade bath, whatever it might be. But yeah, it's going to be tough to replace someone like John Madden.
No, they needed to be doing this way more often. I mean, we just need dedicated John Madden, just highlight segments like this, because nobody does it like this anymore. Nobody has fun like he does with the telestrator. Nobody was that big of a clown in the booth. So, I mean, yeah, no, he made it so much more fun and entertaining to watch a game instead of when you're watching Schlereth or somebody like that as the color guy and just, oh yeah, well, remember when I played, you got to block like that, no. Dude, Madden's hitting you with just all the energy, all of the eccentricities, and just, the soundtrack. Boom, boom. And Caliendo probably extended his legacy to maybe the next generation. Obviously, the video game does that too, but the Caliendo impressions got it even cascading down even further into time. But yeah, no, Madden, dude, he's the best. He's the best. And we were just lucky to have experienced it. And I'll always remember this was actually a Pat Summerall tribute sort of thing. But, Pat Summerall retired before Madden did. And I can remember somebody holding up a sign in the stands Pat Summerall the same, but you and John are the best, are the GOATs. So, George, I mean, any sentimental thoughts there for John Madden?
No, you did a great job in that 9-minute dialogue there. So, sentimental thought, we got one. Our boy, Gerald A. Bear, having his firstborn. He has his own podcast for ULL. Does a great job with it. Listens to our podcast. I don't know why he wastes so much time with us, but we have to give Gerald A. Bear some love and prayers because by the time we record next, he'll have his firstborn. Ron, I got 2 questions for you. These are troll questions, but Ian Book's You saw what happened Monday night, so it's going to happen. This is from Carl Tuckerson. Stronger arm, Drew Brees at 60 or Ian Book?
I didn't think the arm strength was that big of a problem, so I'm going to take Ian Book, of course.
My man. Okay. This one's from David Carr. Would Aaron Brooks be better than our current options at quarterback?
Oh, dude. I mean, come on, man. Y'all think Breeze is old? Dude, who's even seen Aaron Brooks lately, man? This guy is a dinosaur. Dude, he took the Saints to the playoffs 21 years ago. So yeah, no. I mean,
I think he meant like Aaron Brooks in his prime, who really wasn't that bad.
Aaron Brooks.
So Aaron Brooks' problem was the fact that he would smile after interceptions. That's why everyone hated him. He really wasn't that bad. If he had a bit more of a professional demeanor to the game, he wouldn't have irked everybody. He just had some really goofball plays that if he had some like Phillip Rivers reactions to, you could get behind him. But he would have a game losing interception and just smile. And it was just like, no, dude, I can't be more upset about this than you. Like, you need to be more upset. And then it didn't help. And then we got John Jones on the line about this one. And then it didn't help that Jake Delhomme was the fan favorite from Bro Bridge. A lot of guys always said put Delhomme in. And then Delhomme leaves us, goes to the Panthers, goes to the Super Bowl, doesn't win it, goes to the Super Bowl, has a pretty damn good career. And it's like, we started the wrong guy.
Well, maybe we didn't start the wrong guy, but we didn't make the change when it was time. You know, when one guy was really showing you that he was ready to step up and be that leader. George, I think what you're getting at is like Brooks didn't show you that he hated losing. You know, like Peyton Manning always talked about he hated losing more than he liked the joy of winning. You know, and it's just you have to have that mentality of like, dude, you just blew the game. Like you've got to take that and internalize that and get better from that. And yeah, you're right. Brooks always gave off that body language like, no big deal. We're just out here playing a game. It's all fun. It's like, no, dude, millions of dollars are on the line. Like, you're the leader of this franchise. Like,
my happiness for the week is on the line. I'm miserable when you lose.
Exactly, dude. I'm not going to get over this until Thursday. Come on,
Real,
dude.
Though.
George, Ron, if I can interject here quickly, thinking through kind of a comparison with Aaron Brooks, I was thinking about this the other day, kind of through the lens of fantasy football. He's kind of similar to Taysom Hill in a sense. He's not to me at least, he's not maybe not the best guy you want, maybe not the starter, but he's going to rack up some rushing yards on third down when needed. And that I was thinking about that the other day, but he was, I wasn't ever scared of Aaron Brooks as a Panthers fan.
Aaron Brooks didn't like to get hit. He wasn't going to run. I mean, he was fast. There's no Michael Vick. He's not nearly as fast as Taysom Hill. He didn't like to get hit. He would roll out the pocket. If there was 12 yards there to run, he'll get you 7 and run out of bounds or slide. He's not physical like Taysom. Taysom wants it. I get what you say there. The comparison that we heard over here all year was the comparison to Jameis, but Jameis outshined him come Halloween game. But, John, thank you for making us sound smart and prepared when it comes to the Panthers game. We appreciate you coming on. We'll do it again twice next year. I don't wish you well in the Sunday's game, but we wish you well in life in this holiday season. Don't catch COVID. Don't blow your fingers off with the fireworks. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. All the blessings in the world to you, my man, because we really do appreciate you coming on to making us sound professional. Ron, what you got?
Oh, no. Yeah, John. Hey, best of luck in 2022. Y'all getting a head start on the Saints in the offseason preparation because the Saints going on the playoff run. All right, y'all. Look, hey, winning out. And remember, go Hoodats, boo 49ers, boo Eagles, boo Vikings. George, John, really appreciate it. This week's Pro Saints Talk, we out here, baby.
2nd and 7. Newton in trouble and sacked. First guy there was Tyler Davison. Onyemata was there at the end of it, and Newton got hit hard. With Tyler Davison, he works across Ryan Khalil, the center, and Cam able to get away from him. You can see right up the gut. Cam trying to get away from him, and then he gets just smashed.
And he's now down on a knee. Looks to be out of it. He was going to the sideline and then just went down.
Well, that was a big time hit as he came around.